weight of the world is on my shoulders, and I am so full of hope. You see, I was a college student athlete. I was a college softball student athlete, about an hour and a half down the road at Hanover College, about 1,100 students. And I loved playing softball. I loved that ping of the bat when you hit that sweet spot, the feel of the leather after about 15 years of using the same glove. I loved spring in Indiana, when you're out there and you feel that gradual transition from winter to spring, and you can smell it, you can feel it. I loved seeing a perfectly manicured field before the game. I loved playing softball. So when I had the opportunity to work at the NCAA about 12 years ago, I thought, holy cow, I'm living the dream, but I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders, because this is the first time that I now have the opportunity to work on behalf of over 500,000 student athletes across the country at schools as large as IU, including IU, and for schools smaller than Hanover. I was getting to impact those lives. And I think if you were to ask any of my colleagues at the national office, they'd probably have a similar feeling of, holy cow, that's a large responsibility, but how exciting and how optimistic is that? But I come at it from a little different angle. Where I come from, I was a closeted college student athlete, okay? So as much as I loved playing ball, and I mean I desperately loved playing ball, it was so critical to my development as a student and as a human being. It was part of who I was. But I was closeted. And so I went through my entire college career as a two-dimensional person. I was so full of fear, of terror, of depression. I'd be in the locker room with my teammates or in the showers with my teammates after a game, and it was eyes above the chin. So I wouldn't even give a hint that I might be gay. When we were on the road for games and we stayed in a hotel, everybody had to share a bed with a teammate. I'd inch over to the edge of the bed, lie as straight and flat as I could, and make an invisible line in the bed so as not to even suggest that I might be doing something inappropriate. That was my existence, doing something I loved so much and with people I loved so much, but they didn't know who I was. Fortunately, when I graduated from college, I don't know where it came from, but I found a thimbleful of courage to come out to my family just a few months later. And thank God, I'm not religious, but thank God I did, because my mother passed away a year later from ovarian cancer. I traveled for a year backpacking overseas. I did a couple years in AmeriCorps, and then I found myself here at IU in 2006. And it was like this rainbow Pandora's box opened up. Here I was on a campus where there was an LGBT center that came with Doug Bowder, if anyone has met Doug Bowder. He was a lifeline to me. That center was a lifeline to me. There was LGBT programming going on across campus in residence life. There were gay bars, there were drag shows. That was not my experience at Hanover. I was at Hanover from 1998 to 2002. There was no frame of reference. There was no resource. There was no safe space. There was no pride flag. There was nothing. I was on an island. So IU saved my life. It truly, sincerely saved my life, with a caveat. I did a 1.5-year practicum while I was at IU in the athletics department. And that was the one place on campus that I went back to being my two-dimensional self. And in a place that I loved. I loved sport, not just softball, I loved sport. And so it killed me to have to walk through the doors of Assembly Hall every day knowing I've got to pin that down. I've got to trap that in. and I'm not going to even give a hint that I'm gay. So I resolved to myself when I got the opportunity to work at the NCAA, I'm done with that. Athletics at that point in time was not a safe space for queer people. But I had an opportunity, I had a platform, and I had some direction. And so when I started at the NCAA, I resolved that I would be an advocate. I'm not gonna go march in the streets, but I'm gonna get to people one by one. I'm gonna reach people that I work with at the national office. I'm gonna reach people out in the membership. I'm gonna affect change. I met my beautiful wife, Cindy, who also works at the NCAA. I met other queer colleagues at the NCAA. I met a boatload of allies at the NCAA. I got to work with people across the membership as they were trying to create athletics departments that were inclusive of queer people. And now for the last 2 years, I'm in a position where I get to fight for LGBTQ inclusion every single day. Every single day, I'm having conversations with presidents, athletics directors, conference commissioners, student athletes, coaches, academic advisors, you name it, I'm having those conversations. How do we get trans athletes opportunities to participate? How do we make sure they have safe spaces to participate? How do we create visibility for our queer student athletes and our queer coaches? How do we make sure that our policies are reflective of our gender inclusion and gender neutrality? Those are the conversations I'm having. I'm even having conversations with faith-based institutions, presidents all the way down, on how can we find common ground for our queer student athletes who also just as strongly identify as people of faith, so they don't have to check one identity at the door. I am honored and humbled, and that is the weight of the world that is on my shoulders right now, but which fills me with so much hope. And it makes me so happy to be in a state that allows me to be with my wife, to be with my family, to be who I am, and to make the experience of queer student athletes all across the country so much better than mine ever was. Thank you.